Hey babies, it's your favorite host, Mr. BMG, back at it again with another episode. Let's get into it. This past weekend was so much fun. The girls were outside and it was ATL Black Pride, and yeah, it's always like such a fun event. It's such a huge thing that draws in so many different black queer kids from all over. So it's definitely such a fun experience, and I often always look forward to all the big boy events because, honey, I'm all about going where I'm wanted and celebrated and not just tolerated. Navigating black queer spaces can be very hostile. As much as we're all celebrating Pride, let's be honest, the gays are really just here to like fuck around and find out, basically. Like literally that's what they're doing, and just doing the most. But it's not really about inclusivity, and I feel like sometimes that's why it starts to feel like it's all the same thing, because it's just party after party and it's just everyone looking at each other up and down, giving each other once over, judging. Like it always feels like such a hostile thing, and I definitely prefer to party with lesbians. Like if I can get myself in a group of lesbians and just party, even going to an all lesbian party, which is always fun, to be honest, because they're not hostile. Like you can literally go into a party that was probably made for them or they planned it for their people, but you can still go there and actually have a good time because there's no that gay hostility of bitches just looking you up and down for no reason, or just being purposefully unfriendly or purposefully guarded and bitchy because they think it's pretty cool, or just because they've been hurt by somebody and so do the exact same thing. So just like how I felt with DC Black Pride, there's very much lots of division within the Pride culture itself. If anything, I think it glorifies the idea of unity, but not necessarily puts it into practice, and that's for me always a letdown. But to be honest, I had a good time. I really did invest myself in going into the spaces in which I'm celebrated in, and so I did that. Went to a big boys gaming/dating night. That was pretty fun because it was so intimate, and you actually got to see people going on blind dates. Of course, they give us food, and that was just always like, that always gets me excited. And then, yeah, that was the big boy event. And then we also had another big boy event on the Saturday at Bulldogs. Bulldogs is like such a national treasure. Like if there's one gay bar that I like in the United States of America, it's Bulldogs for so many reasons. Generally, the crowd that tends to go there, sometimes it can be younger, but like I like it when you get to see the grown and sexy guys who aren't so obsessed with the aesthetic and, just being about that life, but they're just there to enjoy, have a good time, to dance, and just be vibes. So I like it for that vibe, and that's the initial vibe that I first ever, that's the initial vibe that I got when I first went to Bulldog. So ever since then, I've sort of kind of been going there expecting that, and generally for the most part, it's always the same. And the staff aren't hostile, the drinks are super cheap, like cheap as in you probably won't find any other place in Atlanta with drinks as cheap as Bulldogs unless they're giving them away for free. That's how good of a price they are, and for that reason alone, like I feel like we love Bulldogs. You want to be in a place where you can actually afford to buy water. You can actually afford to buy just the bare minimum, even if it's actually not even alcohol, but like just the bare minimum, and it's affordable and you can buy it, and it's not like, 1000% markup. So then I got to go to the Pure Heat Community Festival, which is usually on the Sunday, and it's kind of like the wrap-up event, if I want to put it that way, because it's the day where everyone's in the park and they're listening to music, and Saucy Santana performed. Obviously, she's killing the game and she's doing so well, so proud of her. And Big Sexy was there to introduce Saucy Santana, and then you had a couple of other people who were sort of just roaming around. Heavenly, Quad, T.S. Madison were also in the vicinity. And I feel like it is a lesbian-led Pure Heat Community Festival, which is also, I think, a reason why, let's be honest, it's actually functional. You might as well call me lesbian child, because I'm so pro-lesbians. Like, I support those people, ride or die. I think it's because lesbians have actually extended me grace in general. Like, they have not been nasty to me. If I can pinpoint a gay person who's nasty to me, it'll more than likely be another black gay person, because that's just how nasty they are to each other. They just really, really don't know how to treat each other, and it's just so disappointing, because for me, I'm always going to stand for purpose, and purpose is protect the big boys at all costs. So if there's a big boy doing something, I'm going to support them, and protect those who celebrate you, and those who celebrate me within the black queer community have happened to be lesbians, black lesbians, studs particularly. So shout out to them, shout out to I think it's Rockstar Productions and Atlanta Black Pride Weekend, that organization, and everyone who was sort of involved in putting that event together, and the sponsors and all of that stuff. I think it's always such a great event. Yeah, of course, Deviant. Obviously, Deviant was nice, but the venue sucked so bad because it's so hot. Like, I was literally in there for like probably less than an hour less than I left, because it was too hot. Like, they do it in this place called Underground Atlanta, but this place does not have AC, doesn't have anything. Like, it was too hot, people. Like, way too hot. So that really kind of created an uncomfortable experience for me, because I've been to other Deviant events and there was definitely not an issue of ventilation, but this time there definitely was. So that was kind of frustrating, but in any case, it happened. And yeah, that was Pride, you guys. That was Pride. But anyway, my takeaway from this whole experience and Pride in general is that, yeah, they all start to feel and look exactly the same, because if you've been to enough of them, you start to see that they really all are just the same. So what has been my best Pride so far this year? I definitely would have to say Miami Beach Pride was top tier. Of all the ones that I've been to, that was probably the most refreshing because one, just where it is, it's at the beach, you know, and two, I just love Miami. I love South Beach. I just love being by the ocean. And also three, Miami is such a carefree space, although they are very body conscious, but you can literally just be in skimpy. Like in Miami, the less clothes you have on, the better you fit in. But yeah, Miami was really great. And I think it also because it was my birthday trip, so maybe I enjoyed it for that reason. But I think it's just always a good time in Miami. So it wasn't a Black Pride, but it was actually, it felt like a wholesome pride. I came across the story where it is apparent, or maybe it's official now, that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. And I guess they've announced it by essentially kind of posting, hey, your favorite gym teacher and your favorite English teacher and your gym teacher got married or are engaged or whatever. I was like, oh, that's cute. I mean, look, I don't really care much for the girl. Like, you won't really see me talking about Taylor Swift much, just because she's just not necessarily my vibe musically, and you know how I've often said that she's overrated, which I think she is. But look, this is obviously a momentous occasion for her, and you know, it obviously made news even in the Black press, child. So I guess that's why I'm talking about it. So congratulations, Taylor and Travis. People also were kind of speaking about how Travis was kind of code switching back to a white boy, you know, and how, you know, he sort of dated Black women in the past, and essentially kind of had this urban aesthetic to him and was cosplaying as a Black dude or white boy with flavor, essentially. And now he's just back to being a regular beige, well, white person, right? So he's just kind of fitting the brand of the girl that he's essentially with. And if you're with a boring girl, then you might as well also kind of look boring and be plain vanilla, essentially. So yeah, good for them. You know, I hope everything works out for them. The next story I want to get into, which I think is actually way more exciting than the gym teacher and the English teacher's engagement, whatever. But Kris Jenner is actually on the cover of Vogue Arabia. And to be honest, I give her props for her repriming. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's very weird or unusual to see a person who's late in their lives sort of make headlines for the purposes of beauty, for the purposes of looking good and like literally just oozing confidence. And it's their whole brand, you know, the Kardashian brand is beauty, right? If it's not cosmetics, it's, you know, shapewear or whatever. So the whole brand is beauty. So I think in some ways, who better to uphold that vision than the mother herself, essentially, because she's essentially kind of made her children products and have gotten them valuations and essentially have sold them in some ways, have sold a piece of their names and essentially creating equity in that. I'm not sure what beef she has with American Vogue, because I think even she would have been great on American Vogue, not Vogue Arabia. I've never understood when they put people on these different covers of Vogue. Is it the Vogue that has the most readers? Is it a case of American Vogue is reserved for a specific type of people? If so, what are those people? Like, for me, it's never really made sense why you see somebody in Italian Vogue and Vogue Arabia, but these covers are country specific or region specific. So wouldn't we actually be putting people in those regions for the magazines to be culturally relevant in those regions, as opposed to putting American celebrities on those country specific versions? For me, I feel like it's kind of out of touch on their part, you know, to always do that, and it's never really made sense. And it definitely does have like a hierarchy situation, but I think had they been independently of each other, had the Vogue magazines, I guess, celebrated the spaces in which they exist in, or the markets that they're trying to reach, then I think they probably would have been doing much better. So I just found that really weird, but I mean, good for you, Kris, for, you know, landing a Vogue cover. You look amazing. And getting into the next story, it's a bit of a Housewives update, and I feel like I talk about these girls all the time, you know, different franchises. It's the Housewives universe. But anyway, Karen Huger is expected to be released from prison next week Tuesday, i.e. a few days from now. And Jen Shah is also essentially about to be released as well, though not in the same time frame, but, you know, I guess relatively soon. And this whole trend of housewives going to jail has actually been like a thing. It's almost like it's become like a rite of passage for quite a lot of them, spiraling or getting divorces, going to jail for something dodgy or something related to their husbands or something that they did. Like, it's just always a thing for them. It's definitely not a good look. Like, definitely did them no favors, and I'm sure obviously the time in that space is giving them time to reflect. And it's always interesting to see how different these women become after that whole time, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how Karen Huger, you know, will be moving. Is she directly going to go back to Housewives? Is she filming currently maybe like a special episode or special, you know, segment where she's sort of going to be released from jail, you know, because I'm sure they probably want to do that because, you know, they just want to incorporate that into her storyline, because she's going to have to kind of recollect what that experience is, how she's a different person. So, and I think it would be great to have her in a pivotal season because I think they're going into season 10 and she's a day one, so I think it would be great to have her in some capacity in season 10, and if not in season 11 when she's back and she's recovered and she's had some time. Interesting times for Karen Huger and Jen Shah. Jen Shah really, I feel like, put Houses of Salt Lake City on the map, and probably after this prison stint she's probably going to be a very different woman, so it'll be interesting to see how she moves and if the ladies are going to be walking on eggshells around her like they kind of did in the past, you know, because she was kind of erratic. So yeah, it's an interesting time for these Housewives franchises, and also to see how they would reintegrate if they're going to be in that, you know, in those particular shows again. But Gabourey posted a picture with her man, and the man happens to be white, and essentially it was just kind of a cute banterous picture, and essentially kind of showcasing that they are in love and are happy, and she looks really fulfilled, he looks fulfilled, and they just look like such a great couple. But the wider conversation that came out of all of this is interracial relationships, and if Black women, you know, or other Black people dating people of other races, are they happier in those relationships? And that really got me to thinking, because she really looks like she's being loved right, and she's kind of in the suburbs of relationships, darling. So it got me to think of my own personal life when I think about it, because I've had some interesting experiences with Black men which aren't necessarily positive. There just has never been like great connection with them, you know, like I've just never really connected with them as easily as I can connect with white men. You know, in a room full of people, I'm likely to have a conversation or even start a conversation with a white person. I think I just don't find white men difficult to converse with. Like, for some reason I feel like I tend to be more compatible with them, but my thing is I'm not attracted to them, which is always a letdown, because it's like, well, if you have great conversations with these people but you're not attracted to them, but you're attracted to Black men, but it's difficult to even pull a full sentence out of a Black man, you know, not the WIA, WD, like people can't even type in full sentences. So yeah, if you can't even pull a whole sentence out of a Black man but you're attracted to them, then it's kind of like a weird dilemma, like stuck between a rock and a hard place, because what feels right doesn't feel right because you're not attracted to it, and what doesn't feel right feels right because you're attracted to it. So it's weird. It's such a weird dynamic. And I think about her relationship and I'm just like, you know what, sometimes on the other side of your, I want to say, perception, or on the other side of your limiting beliefs are your hopes and dreams, in the sense that, like, sometimes expanding your horizon in terms of who you would be open to dating people of other races, I think sometimes that actually would help people, and that may actually help me, because I feel like sometimes you just need to stop looking in the same places because you'll keep getting the same result, and start looking in different places and start connecting with different people so that you get a different result. And, you know, I think that's important. Like, it really opened up such a huge can of worms. And I also feel like Black men tend to not be the most tactful in dealing with different matters. Like, I've often been shamed for being bigger by Black men. I've often been bullied, or just in many different ways of trauma that's come from just being around Black men, to the point where I feel like it's made my relationship with them very complicated. And because of that, there's this disconnect between the attraction and emotional and, you know, cognitive compatibility. And it's just a very weird dynamic. But I just feel like Gabourey has encouraged me to expand my horizons, and maybe in doing so I actually may just find love. So yeah, good for you, Gabe, and I hope that everything works out with your man, because you look happy, you're glowing, and hashtag stiff wigs of life. But clearly that hair is laid, so maybe white men do like a girl who also has a nice head of hair as well, you know, because the whole stiff wigs of life thing is always so funny, because it's like, it's a stereotype of how every Black girl you see that is dating a white man often has a bad wig. So yeah, maybe that's the fix of life is for me. So Rihanna celebrated 20 years in the industry, in the music industry, and essentially a 20-year anniversary of her first album release, and was essentially just kind of penning a message to say how grateful she is for the support of the public, and what a humble journey that, you know, all the success, you know, growing up in, I guess, coming from Barbados and to the Americas, or coming from Barbados to the United States and making it so big in life and just all over the world, essentially just penning heartfelt gratitude on her journey thus far. And Rihanna is always an interesting case study for me, because she hasn't released music in, like, I guess 10 years, but like music, I'm talking about albums, whatever. She hasn't released music in a very long time, but she's still so relevant. Like, she's still the most Spotified artist, one of the most Spotified artists to this day, because she had so many good songs and number one hits back then that people are still playing and are still nostalgic about to this day, that she gets so many streams. So it's very, very interesting how much power she actually has in the music industry, and what the next 20 years of her life actually looks like. Is she going to re-enter music? Is she going to release music? And is it too late? You know, obviously people still love her and are still connected to her old music, but will the new music still be as appreciated in this current climate, if it is released, and what does that even look like? Is that something she actually wants to do? And is the next 20 years going to be more about her family, raising her children, expanding her businesses, creating that generational wealth? And it's a very interesting landscape because I feel like she's just a very likable person and very marketable to so many people, and which is the reason why she's so successful, because she's very relatable. She's your girl next door, and yeah, very, very interesting, illustrious career. But I don't think her passion is in music anymore per se. I think it was a means to an end, and maybe the end was achieved, and now she's sort of just in a different chapter. And I guess people should just allow her to be who she is and remember her for the quality that she gave us, and not necessarily expect her to maybe release new music, because I almost feel scared that if she releases new music and it doesn't do well, does that tarnish that legacy of her prime? Because she's kind of now in a legacy status by default, because she hasn't released music in such a long time, and people are just holding on to that old Rihanna. But if the new Rihanna doesn't do well, it's almost like Mariah Carey releasing new music. I know she's just released the album art of her new album that's coming out as well, and it's like, do people really care? Like, people, when I think of Mariah, I think people think of All I Want for Christmas and some of her classics, We Belong Together, Touch My Body, and some of her classic music from the 90s, depending on what generation you appreciated her in. And it's like, does new music really, is it what we need from her? Probably not. Is there a taste for it? Probably not. But is she maybe just doing it for fun? Maybe, and maybe that's just with Rihanna now. Too much time has passed where maybe people still care for her old music, but may not necessarily care for her new music anymore, or it may not be as impactful as it once was. So is she protecting her legacy by going back into music? Should she do that? Or is the best way to protect her legacy to just not do it anymore and focus on the different direction that she's been in? So it's an interesting case study, and she's iconic always. So yes, Riri girl, happy 20-year anniversary. And to end off on a musical note, as per usual, I came across the song, brand new video by Ciara called Low featuring Diamond Platinumz, and it's so good. It is so good. I need that song to be on 100 million views like yesterday. It's really beautiful, choreo, and it's basically a fusion of R&B, Amapiano, Afrobeats, and it just became this beautiful mesh of genre-bending excellence, I think. To be honest, it kind of reminded me of a Tyler song. Like, I know obviously Ciara has dabbled with Afrobeats and just dancing in general to many, integrating many different cultures in the way she dances, because she's literally a dance athlete. To be honest, she's really good at dancing, and that's a big part of her success is how well she moves. So the video is very choreo driven, heavy choreo, and it's so good. Like, we've been seeing a lot of music videos with heavy choreo, kind of going back to the olden times of music videos, like Abracadabra, Push to Start, Low 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 Low, Is It by Tyler as well. Like, so many choreographed, heavily choreographed music videos, and it's really giving us, I guess, the things that we want to see. I just think the song is just really beautiful. The music video is so polished, and the Diamond Platinumz feature is actually kind of unexpected, because I just didn't even know that they were kind of like that, or they would feature. But I think a lot of people are still very interested in featuring African artists, because it's worked for Chris Brown. He featured Davido, and some other folks, Wizkid as well. He featured Wizkid in one of his songs, and they've done really well, and it just kind of it marries the union between American music and African music so beautifully, so well. And like Call Me Every Day by Wizkid and Chris Brown, sensational, by Davido and Chris Brown, and so many others. And now it's like this Low 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 song by Ciara and Diamond Platinumz. It's just magic, it's beautiful, and I want African music to continue to be celebrated. So yeah, man, we're officially heading into September now, and I'm tired of fighting for the song of the summer. I think the song of the summer is what you want it to be. As long as for whatever song you're playing on repeat every single time you're on your phone or you're listening to music, that is your song of the summer. So let's all have our own songs of the summer, and not necessarily have to collectively agree, because we're running around in circles and chasing tails at this point. So yeah, that's that on that. Anyway, babies, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Messiest Bitch on the Internet. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also follow us on Instagram at BigManEntertainment_, and I'll see you again on the next one.